What do you see as you walk through the landscape? I mean, what do you actually see? We think a beautiful landscape is mountains, green trees, valleys, verdant ground, streams, all laid out in front of us, but purely subjective, in my opinion. Not everyone gets the same kind of rush when they look over a verdant valley or from the peak of a mountain. Not everyone gets it. Well, that's not necessarily wrong. I knew someone once, and we used to go out hiking in the Lake District and in the Yorkshire Dales a lot. And when we got to the top of a hill or a valley with a beautiful view, I would say, wow, look at that, and I would start gushing like mad about it. But she just didn't get it. She just didn't really get it, and would actually say, what am I looking at? Because she actually saw the whole point of going up there as exercise. And it was a day, 5-6 hours slogging up and down mountains. God, it's got to do you good. So that's what she got, but I got a different thing. I enjoyed the climb, but all the time that was secondary. All the time my eyes were just on the shifting landscape around me. The trick is in the seeing and not just the looking. And it's not just mountains and scenery and majesticness and beautiful streams like the one we're walking along the side of, which you can probably hear in the background. And we've had a lot of rain, so it's quite full and it's making a beautiful musical background for this episode. But it's not just the looking, it's the seeing. And it's not just the wild countryside. You stand on a city street or a town street that stretches off straight and uniform before you and after you. And look, I was brought up in an industrial northwest of England town, very old, and most of the shops were, it was beginning to get a bit run down, so there were lots of betting offices, charity shops, that kind of thing, as well as some nice retail shops. And people will say, oh, it looks a bit shabby, but I would say, don't look at that, look up, look at the buildings above the shop windows. And when you did that, everyone, to a man, woman and other, would say, wow, I never actually noticed that the architecture was 150, 200 years old. It was stunning. And you looked at this and it stretched off into the distance, this beautiful architecture that just drew your eye. And as you looked, you actually saw the architecture for what it was. You didn't just see it, you automatically, without thinking about it, appreciated the skill and work that had gone into it. All the more fascinating for the knowledge that it has been done a couple of centuries before. Can we do it now? I'm not sure we can. But you were seeing it. A city street, a glorious, one of our big city streets, London, Manchester, New York, Chicago, wherever in the bloody world you are, Sydney, Brussels. Oh, I'm not mentioning every city on the planet, but you look at them and you look down them and it just looks like a line of shops either side. But you look more closely and you start to appreciate the actual beauty in the architecture. Because whereas nature has created a natural landscape that we all love, or that most people love if you've got a heart in your body, an imagination in your mind, but the same goes for these cities, because it's been created by huge teams of people who are well versed in what makes people happy, what makes people shop, what people want to see rather than look at. So you look and you see the shop fronts and the shop windows, you see the lights, the neon lights, because they've been placed there after years and years of research in what you who's looking at it finds pleasing. And then you see thousands of people milling about, but not colliding, as if in some kind of dance. Almost, if you take that out of the equation, the people moving round, it's almost ethereal. It's almost like otherworldly as they glide around, without touching, but understanding, preempting what the other person's going to do, like a beehive. Looking down from on high is a totally different experience, because it gives us a feeling, being up above everyone else, detached from everyone else, gives us a feeling of power and knowledge. You look down from high up on a fellside, high up on a hillside, top of a mountain, and you look down at a valley of patchwork fields, and you can probably make out the dots of cows or sheep. And you don't just look at it, because when you look at it, it's abstract. When you look at it, you just see the colours, the outline. But when you see it, because you see everything for what it is, you see the little tractor in the distance. That man in that tractor, or woman or other, isn't aware of you looking at them. They're going through a routine they do every day. The sheep grazing, the cows grazing. You can see a stream, and if you look closely enough, you can probably see more movement in the water, or a waterfall. Narrow waterfall falling down a cliff face, and you can actually see the movement in it, and it actually paints a picture of life itself. It paints a picture of nature, and that's when you look at it, and once you see it, that is when it's so difficult to take your eye off it, because there will always be more detail. Look out from the top of a skyscraper or a tall building, over the rooftops of a cityscape, and it's exactly the same thing. You look down on the ant people below, you look down on the traffic, and you're there, you're detached, your eye up, but you are aware that you're looking down on humanity as a microcosm. You're looking down on people going about their day with all their emotions and all their worries and all their grief and their angst and their joy as well. And they're totally unaware that you are looking down on them. It's almost godlike, isn't it? The only difference is you can't change anything that's happening down there. You can only observe it. If you're looking down from a high building and you see two cars collide in the street below, and people run towards that accident, you're detached. There's nothing you can do about it. All you can do is stand there and watch impotently as the process goes its course. As people come round, as ambulances come round, as whatever happens will happen. And you're the observer and you stand there. And because this is happening, and it's like a story unfolding in front of you, it's very difficult to tear your eyes away. See, we're in a little valley now called Leadmines Clough, and it's a beautiful little spot. And I'm looked round and I'm seeing there's a bird over to my left, you can probably hear it. We're coming up to some broom, and there's some flowers just opening up. They're still buds, but they're yellow. Sorry, not broom, it's gorse, but they're yellow. But you only notice them if you really look. And the path now going down to the gate in which we came, and I can stand here and just look, and the stream is there, going away under the bridge before me. The ground to my left raises up. There's a blue sky beyond the early morning clouds. They're grey, but you can see where the sun, can you see it there? You can see the sun reflecting, coming in from the east over to my left, telling us that it looks like it might be a bright day. can see where we've been, and you can see it. And 10 minutes ago we were up there, and from here it looks remote and lonely. But when you're actually in it, it's not. It's friendly and welcoming. See, don't just look. When you're in a car, in a landscape, going through a landscape, when you're the passenger in the car, because if you're the driver in the car, I would rather you be concentrating on the road ahead of you. But if you're in a car, on a train, in a bus, in a coach, whatever, and you sit and you look out of the window, and we tend to watch. We look at the view, we look at the countryside, we look at the townscapes and cityscapes going by us, don't we? We lean with our heads against the glass, not licking the glass. That's for another day, but we go through with our heads against the glass and we gaze out at the countryside, and it just drifts by, minute by minute, without us taking much notice. But if we see it, if we actually see it, what we see then is the trees and bushes and houses that are close to us, rushing by. But if we look beyond it, the countryside in the distance, the townscape in the distance, is drifting by, oh so slowly. It's interesting, at the very least. We see change. Have you ever been on a train or on a journey in a car where you're going, you're changing altitude as you drive? You may be going up, say I'm going to Scotland onto the fells or up into the Lake District, and I start off, and as I drive, things change subtly, and you don't notice it until you see snow on the peaks in front of you. But all the time you've been going up there, it's been changing. There's been less and less leaves on the trees. The grass is looking a bit more windswept. The trees are bending away from the wind. It's getting a bit more mountainous. You look at the size of the hills and the fells, and it's brown because it's a bit more hostile. And it's changing all the time. And if you don't see it, and you only actually do it once in your life, you will never have appreciated it, will you? You will go to your grave with one thing in your life missing, and that's the appreciation of a journey. And it's worth it. Going through life seeing things is just more interesting than going through life looking at things. It takes up more of the day. It gives more value to the day. You actually have more memories of the day, because if you look at things and you take it in, like I'm looking down at a river, the stream here now, and I can see the movement of the water, but you look closely and you can see the glisten of the rocks where the water has been running over, but then the other rocks where it hasn't are still much lighter and dry. There's nuances in every little thing. The brown leaves of a beech tree over to my right are brown, but I've never noticed how they hang. They're not just brown, but they're limp. It looks quite sad and forlorn, but not for long, because hopefully before too long we will be heading into spring, when everything comes awake. We've only been 5 minutes since I talked about the clouds, but now I'm looking up and the clouds are white, are pinky white as the sun comes up, and the sky is blue, and it's changing all the time. Look, someone says, look at that raptor up there flying about, and you look up and there's a buzzard or a peregrine falcon or something else, or a kestrel or whatever on the thermals quartering the ground, and you see it. But if you look at it, you notice you can almost see every feather. You can see the movement of the feathers as it subliminally naturally, automatically moves to keep itself exactly where it wants to be. Did you see that? Did you see it, or did you just look at it? I'm sure you're all very perceptive people out there, and I'm sure you all do see. But it sounds, when you say things, when I talk about things in these videos, it's like I'm doing it for my own benefit as much as anything else, because it reminds me to keep seeing and not looking. It reminds me to appreciate everything around me. Talking to yourself is a useful exercise. And if anybody says you're mad, tell them you're doing it to make yourself more aware, less crazy. If you see the world, you will see it for what it is. So we will see you on the flip. Peace and love.